There you are.
So we are recording, and I'm now putting us on Facebook Live. So this Seth Talk today will be recorded. It will be put on YouTube later on in the week. And I will monitor the Facebook page.
Okay.
Seth Talk Live. Seth.
So how's the weather where you are, Bob? Are you on the East Coast or the West Coast?
I'm near in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Philadelphia, very hot and muggy today.
Mhm.
90s and muggy, so haven't been outside yet.
Whoa, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm in Los Angeles, California, and the temperature's not quite that high.
Oh, good. Nice. I was there back in February.
Okay.
Conference.
Yeah.
Got some friends in LA, but I don't get out there often enough to see them.
Yeah. Well, today it's only about 77 degrees, so it's real perfect. It's perfect.
Send that this way.
Yeah. Hi, Oshara.
Hi, I'm on finally. Sorry for the last minute, getting it together here. Good to see you again, Shauna.
All right. Good to see you too. Good to see you. You look nice.
I try.
Okay, so we are on. So we are live on the Seth Talk Live at the Seth House.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
So
So beautiful.
Well, how did it go last week? What was your feedback like since our last meeting? Did you get a lot of feedback regarding how people feel about the panel idea, or?
It was a good show. We had a good conversation. And for those of you who don't know, let me just first introduce everything. As Kate said, this is called Seth Talk. And we started the Zoom about 3-4 months ago due to the COVID thing. But we're restoring a building in Elmira, New York called the Seth House. And it's because Jane Roberts channeled Seth there. And most of the things that Seth ever said were spoken right there in one of the apartments. So we think it's really important to honor what happened there and to restore the building, make it a 501c. It is a 501c3, this project. And to help bring Seth's words to more people. And that's part of what this video experiment has been about, bringing people together who love Seth, want to talk about Seth, and share the information with each other and with others out there who want to find out more. This has been like this grand experiment, this Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom thing, and we have had such an exciting time of hearing different people speak about what Seth means to them. So as of last week, we kind of shifted how we were doing things just to make it a little, kind of taking it to the next level. We wanted to be sure that the people who are on this are people who really do read Seth, because we had a few experiences where there was some rudeness, or people who weren't really into Seth saying some things that we don't want to have happen again. And also to really keep the quality of the conversation on point. It's about Seth. And so last week we kind of started with an idea of calling it a panel discussion group, and being sure to invite people who've joined us before, who we love their conversation, and they're polite and courteous with others, and they know how to, share conversations about Seth. And it went well, and it was good, and a lot of good information came out. So we're going to stay with this theme of it being a panel discussion, so that we know who's coming on. We know, and people who want to join us just contact us. You can email us at info@thesethhouse.com. We just want to make sure that people who enter this discussion really do want to talk about Seth.
And please do use that one, info@thesethhouse.com.
Yeah, and we check our email every day. And if you want to be on, let's talk, and we'll send you the password so you can join us. Also, what's happening is Kate is monitoring our Facebook page, and the name of our Facebook page is Seth Discussion Group at the Seth House. We love long titles. They're so catchy. But so she's monitoring that. So if people who are watching us live on Facebook want to throw questions at us, we want to receive them. So please, make your comments and your questions, and Kate will relay them to us. And that's part of the whole panel thing. Throw your communications into us. This helps make a wonderful interaction here. We meet every Sunday, 4 p.m. New York time, and we have people from right now so far. We got California and Philadelphia area. Helen Stewart might be joining us later. I was in contact with her this week. Yeah, she's in Hawaii, and she was saying, I got to wake up pretty early, but maybe I'll join you a little later on. And it sounded like she really wanted to be part of it. I'm excited about that. And Jeffy can't make it. He had some stuff going on today. Audrey, Nikki, and 2 other women also said that they wanted to join us. So as it goes, we're in the moment here.
Okay.
Well, we have 8 people on Facebook right now, and we got Julianne from UK. Joe is on. I do believe Joe's from Australia. Lizzie is on from Elmira, New York.
In our book study group in person.
Yes. Julianne Ainsworth says, I love Seth. So
tell these folks that they need to participate. I mean, maybe at some point in the future, the conditions change. It'd be great to hear new people. I would love to hear from, I think, forgive me if I'm saying her name wrong or his name wrong, but it's Joki or Joke Zimmerman.
That's Joe.
They participate a great deal. Okay, yeah, I would love to talk with that person. They participate a lot on Facebook, a lot of interesting questions and insights. I think that I would like to interact with that person, or have them maybe even be on the panel at some point down the line.
Shauna, I agree that that's been part of the joy, is that people who maybe were interacting just on Facebook when we started doing this, we want, oh, you're that guy who posts those things. It's so nice to see a real person. So yeah, so from Facebook to Zoom to real life, it's like, join the conversation. And as we said last week, okay, we're doing this once a week. We hope it grows into more than once a week. We're working out the bugs technically and otherwise, but that this can really grow to be, including more people, serving more interests. There could be a book study Zoom, what have you. So open to anything. But, more the merrier. Bring in our friends.
Yeah.
Is there anything else going on technically wise, Kate, or people on Facebook, or?
Not yet. I am still sending invites around. So what Oshara and Shauna were talking about, anybody that wants to be on, please email me at info@thesethhouse.com. We will get you the invite. If you do it today, you're not going to get the invite until next week. So I need to have this done before the show starts so that I can send the invites out. Okay?
Yeah. But, and people hop on, hop off, and that's fine. We know everyone has schedules around the world. So always glad to have you with us, no matter how long you can spend. Yes. So now I'm thinking maybe we should launch into the show. I wanted to, well, Shauna, so glad to see you again. I'm looking at a little square box that has Bob Terrio on it. Wave, Bob. For those of you who don't know Bob Terrio, we want you to know Bob Terrio. He's been in the Seth community for decades. He is an amazing guy, and he's done some amazing things. So let me show you one of the things he's greatly acknowledged for. Here it is. He made this video, an interview with Robert Butts, and it's a masterwork. It's Bob Terrio is video maker. He's an artist. He's a novelist. He's so creative and such a beautiful soul, and we're so glad we know him. We finally met him in real life last year when he came to Jane Roberts' birthday party, and he's done beautiful things for us. But we'll talk more about that as it all goes on. But Bob Terrio, there you are. Can you tell us, what does Seth mean to you? Just take it away.
25 words or less, right?
What's that?
In 25 words or less.
Thousands. We've got 2
Right.
hours. If you just want to talk about Seth for 2 hours, it'll be a great show. Go for it.
Well, like probably most of us here, Seth is in the Seth material has been a real game changer in terms of my beliefs. And I grew up in New England in a traditional Irish Catholic family, going to public schools and kind of getting the standard education. But I always had an interest in all kinds of things. Even at a young age, interest in like UFOs and ghosts and Bigfoot and things like that were always just kind of interesting. And so then as I grew older, I still had very traditional beliefs. Went to regular school, did well in grades, and accepted the kind of traditional values and beliefs that one would get in public schools at the time. And it was during high school, my senior year of high school, between high school and going to college, I got a copy of the Edgar Cayce biography, There Is a River, and read that. And that was, at that point, a real eye-opening experience. So for a bunch of years, all through my college years, I read every book that I could about Edgar Cayce. And during my senior year as a film and photography major in Rochester, New York, I decided to make a film about psychic phenomena called Psyche. And back in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of real explosion in the paranormal, ESP, and all sorts of related topics. So I made this film in an attempt to try to prove that people are more than just physical bodies. We have a soul, we have a spirit body, a psyche, and that manifests all sorts of psychic phenomena. And as a part of that, I did a segment on Edgar Cayce and his work. And we interviewed his son, Hugh Lynn, who was head of the Cayce organization at the time down in Virginia Beach. And he was so impressed by what I had done. And so I let him know that I would be interested. I knew they were trying for years to make what they call an introductory film that they could run daily at the Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach. Because everybody who walks through the door asks the same 100 questions about Edgar Cayce. So the staff would be kind of taxed at kind of answering the same questions over and over. So they wanted to make a film they could run there that within 30 minutes or less would answer all the major questions about Edgar Cayce's life and work. So yeah, that led to Hugh Lynn Cayce hiring me to come to Virginia Beach in the summer of 1975 and basically produce and direct a 30-minute film about Cayce and his life, which ran for 19 years daily at the ARE.
Show us a copy of that film. I think you have that there.
This was the updated version. It went through the original film version, then it went through another adaptation in film, and then twice I upgraded it in video formats to just add better special effects and graphics and sound, but the basic storyline and script were there.
So Bob, it sounds like from a very early age, you were interested in metaphysical stuff, including channeling, and Edgar Cayce, one of the big hot channels of all time.
Yes. So it was while I was there, the summer '75, and heavily involved in meeting all of the people who knew and worked with Edgar Cayce and getting all involved with that. And some of the other people who worked there that I got to know, and they said, you know, you should read these books by this author Jane Roberts, and they're the Seth books. And I was kind of so much into Edgar Cayce that I was like, I didn't want to kind of muddy the waters, and I, you know, knew there were all kinds of channelers out there, and I'm like, you know, I'll get to it sometime. And it was after I finished editing the Edgar Cayce film, I was in a bookstore and saw one of the Seth books and picked it up. I think it was Seth Speaks, I think. And within the first 20 pages, 25 pages, I was like amazed. As good as the Edgar Cayce material it was, this was a real, you know, a change in a different direction that just felt right. And because there was aspects of the Edgar Cayce material, he was a very devout Christian. The Edgar Cayce readings were given in a kind of a language that was almost biblical, where he would speak in these and thous, and as much as I was brought up a Catholic, a lot of the concepts such as reincarnation and so forth in the Cayce material led me to believe that there were things that kind of fell outside of the box of standard religions. So and then of course, so I became open to accepting things that, you know, were a little bit different than I had grown up with, and I kind of shot off from there. Got heavily involved with reading as many of the Seth books as possible. And so that was from like 1976 on. And so for a bunch of years, I then met my wife, got married, started having kids and a family. But all the, you know, in between making a living and raising a family, I would still find the time, usually in the evenings, to keep up with the books and reading the books. And in the back of my head, after having made the Edgar Cayce film, of course, my thoughts were, geez, didn't see that there were any movies or documentaries about the Seth material out there. Wouldn't it be great to do something along those lines?
And boy, did you ever.
And my wife had relatives, had an uncle and aunt who lived in Elmira. And I knew that from about, you know, the mid-70s on. So for many years, I kept like hoping that we would go visit her relatives as an excuse to try to contact Rob Butts and try to make contact with him. And that took over years. It was, I believe, 1990 that we finally did a family trip to visit her aunt and uncle. And I contacted Rob by letter, sent him a letter saying, we're a big fan for many years. I would love to meet you, coming to Elmira. Can we make this happen? And he was kind of like, okay, let me know when you're coming, and then maybe we'll see if we can hook up. And so we did, and we worked it out, and I spent a couple of very wonderful hours with him just chatting about Seth stuff and artwork. I was also an artist, and so we talked about art and common interests, and told him I'd love to make a video about the Seth material. And he was like, okay, yeah, well, I'm busy with trying to publish Jane's books and things like that, but, you know, let me know when you're ready and I'll see if we can work this out. So it was in 1991, I partnered up with another lady producer who wanted to create a series that we could put on cable TV. And her name for it was Mystic Journey. And it was going to cover all topics, anywhere from psychics, ESP, to UFOs and everything in between, ghosts and so forth. So we spent a whole bunch of months traveling around everywhere within driving distance and did a whole bunch of interviews. And one of the people was Robert Butts. And so we went up and spent a day with him and did a great interview. And unfortunately, the show never was produced, but I had the interview. And I said, I've got to make a video. So I contacted him again and I said, well, you know, to really do this video right, we need more B-roll material of photos and or shots of his artwork. So he said, sure, come on back up. And we spent another day there going through photos from their family album and more shots of his artwork that he would do commentary on. And went back and I think it wasn't until '93 that we finally put the video together called Seth Phenomena. And it really chronicles, there it is.
And I want to say this is a remarkable video. I remember the first time seeing this, and it's like, this is Rob sitting there explaining everything. And the photos are beautiful, and just about, you know, Jane Roberts channel Seth. Robert Butts took dictation for 20 years with Seth. And for him to, I don't know of any other place where you get to see Rob reflecting upon everything at such length and with so candid and relaxed, and you were asking questions and he was answering it, and you made a beautiful story out of it. The music, the visuals, him. It's like one of the most important things you need to know, to see, to really get the full picture of the background of what this whole Seth phenomenon was about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it really doesn't get into much of the Seth philosophy because that would take many documentaries. But I wanted to at least cover this, tell the story, their story of how their lives came together, how the Seth material came about, and touch just a little bit upon the philosophies and so forth. So I then, after that, made a number of other documentaries, some of them at the SethNet 97, the first conference they had in Elmira.
Do you have that? Can you show people that? Because this was, and Rob was there, and a whole lot of wonderful Sethies, a whole conference, 1997. I've seen that, and it's just beautiful. All the people who spoke there, and people who kind of interviewed. It's a wonderful.
Hold it up again.
A lot of the class members from Jane's ESP class were there, and they spoke, and Rob spoke, and it was a 3-day event from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And
it's just great, and to watch all these people who we know about, like.
And the full version is about 8.5 hours, and then there's SethFest, which is more like some of the highlights.
That stuff, yeah.
Material, and it's about 4 hours long, and so yeah, just very amazing. And then we went on later to because Rob had, while we were shooting the family photo albums, he had a microphone and he was basically talking about the story behind all of the photos. And in the Seth Phenomena, we only included little snippets of that. But I then went on to make, this is called,
oh, beautiful.
It's a family album tour. And this is really pretty complete in that it covers all of the photographs and with very little editing, most of his commentary about the photos. So it really provides much more insight. And these are really for the people already familiar with the Seth material, that it's more of an insight into their personal lives and their stories, but it's very. And then we also did it.
One of my favorite pictures.
For Rob's artwork. He did the same with his artwork, so that as we were shooting a lot of his artwork, he also would make commentaries on it. And again, a very abridged version of that was included in the Seth Phenomena, but in this, it's so much more complete, and the more goes into stories behind the paintings in much more greater detail. So it's pretty neat stuff. And then at one of the conferences, Linda Dahl and Stan Okowski, who organized the Seth conferences, arranged to do their own interview with Rob, which I photographed and edited. And that's just called Rob Speaks. So it covers, mainly the same material, but, with a slightly different spin on it and twist and so forth. So that is basically, I think that's all the Seth videos. And then one of the class members who was a part of the Jane's classes, his name is George Rhodes. And if you read any of Sue Watkins' books, there were little artwork, caricatures, artwork of some of the class members, and those were sketched by George. And he was well known by being an artist and created these amazing sculptures. And you can see kind of a picture of one here. And these are called Audiokinetic Sculptures.
A little lower.
In museums and places around this country and around the world.
Little lower.
Amazingly big.
Oh, lower. There it is. Symphonies of the Spheres. Okay.
Yeah. So a number of years later, I knew that he was in these classes, and then I connected him with the George Rhodes because he had a bunch of his sculptures in the Philadelphia area, at the Science Museum, one at the airport. So I suddenly made a connection. I go, ooh, why don't we make a film about his sculptures and his life and artwork? And then while I'm there, I'll get him to do a little interview about Jane's classes. So anything referencing Jane and the Seth classes were not in this video, but I've got it on my shelf waiting to use someday. when I do a video about Jane's class, ESP classes and so forth. But
that's going to be exciting because you've talked about when you came to visit the Seth House last year, you started to interview some of the people who knew Jane and Rob and were in their classes. And so this is a project that's underway. You want to interview people who knew Jane and Rob to get this on video while they're still alive and all the insights they might share.
Right, and chronicle that. And I've got a whole hour-long interview with Sue Watkins that I did at one of the conferences that's never been seen by anybody. It's sitting on the shelf waiting to be part of the video. So my intention is to do a video that concentrates on Jane and her life and work. And so the narrative will be by the people who knew her, class members and so forth. Will help provide the narrative for that, so.
Now, Bob, how can our viewers obtain these videos? Are they for sale?
They are for sale, and there's a number of options. They can contact me directly via my email address, which is basically bterrio@gmail.com. I do have a website that I sell these videos, other videos, artwork, and a few other products. And that's called the number 4, and it's 4D Arts Multimedia Marketplace.com.
Oh, Shara, put that back up. I just made the screen bigger.
But it's backwards, isn't it?
No, it's perfect.
Oh,
Yes, straight for us. But yeah, you can contact me directly, and they are available both as DVDs or MP4 video files that I can send as an email attachment. And those can be viewed on any electronic device and TVs that run MP4 files.
And say, I'm sorry I don't have it written down, that you don't really have a website for yourself. You don't toot your own horn, so we need to do it for you. What was that website? 4 Arts? What was it?
4D Arts. It's kind of a for the arts. The number 4, the letter D, Arts Multimedia Marketplace.com.
Okay. Or just email him, and again,
and I can get you the information. Yeah.
So that's 4dartsmultimedia.com.
Multimedia Marketplace.
Marketplace, okay.
And also, if you do 4dartsmm.com, it could come up.
And that's B Terrio
terrio@gmail.com.
Yeah, B as in boy, TERRIO @gmail.com. And the list of what he has done and what he does with his life is so remarkable. And we've had a chance to talk with him, have some wonderful conversations with him. This is an amazing guy. And he's like a Seth reader and has talked to and made documentaries about some of the most amazing things. The work he's done in the UFO community and getting information out there about ancient civilizations. I'll let Bob talk about that a little later on. Let's start talking to Bob and asking questions about just his Seth life and what he has learned and known and what he has given to this community. But first, I think we should say hello, Audrey. You jumped in. We always like to say hi to everybody. Audrey, we're so glad to have you back again.
Hi, Audrey. You're on mute.
You're muted.
Hi, Audrey.
Okay. Now.
Alt A, I think.
Oh,
Whoops. On and off. You're on for a second.
Do it again. Do it again. There she is.
Hey,
Hey, Audrey.
Hey,
Hi.
Ron.
nice to be here.
Audrey, while we have you on, have you heard anything more about your new project?
I
Let me
did.
come back to you about this. This is our Seth spy, and she's reporting in about there's a video out there of Jane Roberts being interviewed live on TV back in the 60s, 70s, and Audrey is hot on the trail trying to find a copy of that. So go.
Thanks to Sean, actually. She did the legwork, well, the investigation. She found out where it was. But yeah, I heard back from Boston U. They're working remotely. So as soon as it's open, they will verify the permission, which was sent. So we're waiting for them to open.
So this video is in an archives somewhere.
Yeah, in Boston University.
Oh, really? Because I believe that was at a Boston TV station when they were promoting the Seth Phenomena book.
Yes.
Right,
Sean-
and Jane was
Sean found
having
it.
the tour.
I grew up in Boston, so I know the fellow who interviewed him, Bob Kennedy, TV personality, I believe.
Sonia
Sonia
Hamlin.
Hamlin.
Oh, okay.
And Jack was it Jack Carr or another fella co-hosted the interview. I don't remember his name. It was I think it was Jack Carr. Something like that. WBZ, 1970s.
Yeah, WBZ, yeah.
But it's archived, and as soon as they open again, they will verify the permission, which I heard from Sonia Hamlin's people saying, no problem, it'll be sent.
Wow.
So, Audrey, do you have any idea of whether or not Sonia Hamlin would be available for an interview, maybe from Bob? Does she seem to be? I know she's in her 90s, maybe in her late 90s. Do you know if
I think she's still active. I think on her on the website it says contact her for an interview. I would have to look again, but probably.
Well, according to her bio on her website, well, not according to the bio, but according to what Jane wrote in Dreams, Evolution, and Projection of Consciousness, Seth gave her kind of like a reading where he went into her past life for her and described some things that occurred in her past life, and she said she verified it. So she said, oh, that's true. Yeah. So I think it would be interesting to interview her and to find out what her take was on the Seth material, and having interviewed Seth, basically.
Yeah.
I could look into that.
Yeah.
Underneath, or Bob. You might
Yeah,
want to take a look.
and I was scheduled this past April to go up to interview the gentleman's name is Carl, the fellow who interviewed Jane at their home. That's in this.
Harold Channer. I
Channer.
a couple emails too. The famous interview where this guy with all the arms moving around is interviews them in their home, and then he also filmed that long black and white film of Jane sitting in the rocker channeling with a couple guys.
Right.
And that is like one of the major documents we have of Jane and Rob and Seth being channeled. And
Yeah.
that interviewer is still alive, still
Yeah.
active as a
In
show.
his 90s, yeah.
And
To meet him in April, and then COVID squashed that whole thing.
But
Yeah.
I sent a couple emails too. I wanted to get a hold and say, do you still have like what was edited out? That might be fascinating too. I want to like do the real of everything that happened.
Sure.
So that would be fascinating. This, yeah. So let's get these people.
Yeah.
And I think there's something synchronistic too. Audrey and Shauna bringing up this woman. That had to be a life-changing event for her to meet Seth channels and says this stuff. I bet she does have something to say about what it meant to her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she might have just found the whole thing weird, you know, but it would be interesting to hear her talk about it.
So Miriam
But
is
I really
asking, Miriam's asking on Facebook, could Sonia Hamlin's interview of Jane be combined with the video material of Jane's classes that Bob is working on?
Sure. It's possible, yeah.
All we
Soon as I-
need is permission.
Soon as I have the video in my hand, I'll send it to wherever
Woo!
it
Thank
has
you.
to be sent.
Great, thank you, wonderful.
Want it, get it on YouTube, make it accessible to people to see.
Mhm.
Mhm,
Well,
'cause,
I
you
was
know,
gonna,
it's-
I was gonna send it to the Seth House.
All
Yeah.
right.
You guys.
And we'll put it out there and we'll
Yeah.
write down how it all came to be found, the sleuthing that went
Yeah.
into finding it. And,
I just
and
think it's so amazing that there's Seth stuff that we've never heard, we've never
Yes.
seen. You know,
Yeah.
when I
Oh,
first started
yeah.
looking at the Seth material, I took it for granted that all the legwork had been done and all of the interviews had been uncovered, that everything that was out there to be had, you know, we had it. And the fact that there's actually something out there that we haven't seen yet, I'm so thrilled with that. I think that's just awesome.
Also, the weird thing about that is that whole weekend I was thinking to myself, did I see her on TV in an interview and it was brought up, and I was like, wow.
you were there when you lived there at the time that would have aired. And so that's another twist in the story there too. So you're saying you might have actually seen it live, and now here you are tracking it down.
I think I did, but I was in New York.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know.
I was in Boston, but I was too little to watch that kind of stuff.
Not me.
12 years old.
I know.
Well, it's just wonderful to be able to say, like, here it is 50 years, 60 years hence, and we're, you know, less than 60, 50, whatever, finding these nuggets, and that there's things hidden away, like that Bob filmed these interviews with people, and there's so many people out there with these stories to tell and we have the blessing of this technology to start getting people's ideas together. And every little insight we can have to understand, you know, Seth and the people who helped bring Seth to us, or the people who experienced Seth and what it was like to them. What an exciting time that we can start, you know, sharing more of this to help get the word out about Seth, so that people can just enjoy this information and all the other things, the background story too. Bob?
I'm starting to believe, sorry, that's the reason why I'm in Rhode Island.
Maybe so. You can't discount anything.
No, it's just weird.
Now, let me ask, have any of you seen any of Bob Terrio's work? I know this is all spontaneous.
I've never seen that. I would love if that were available on the New Awareness Network. You can get a lot of Seth books there. I would love to see that available, just in wide distribution.
Yeah, this is the DVD.
Now, I also did create a channel on YouTube called the Seth Video Channel, and they're all there to view there for nothing.
Write that down, people.
On
Seth
YouTube.
Video Channel.
The Seth Video Channel.
Yeah.
And
So that's where you have some of these videos we're talking about right now?
most of the Seth videos are there, I think, and I think I put Edgar Casey on there and a couple others. I did one about haunted houses in the Philadelphia area.
I like all those subjects.
Me too.
Video channel, Bob Terrio. And let me put
On YouTube.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark, for my spontaneous handwriting, but we're doing the best we can. We have only the most expensive YouTube, Seth Video Channel, Bob Terrio. Go there today. Check it out. He's got
hours of entertainment.
So binge on Seth, binge on Bob's. Wonderful. He's an artist. He really is. When you see some of the things he's created, this has been his career. He's a filmmaker. He's a documentary guy. He is putting such important information out there. And thank goodness we have Bob Terrio, because he loves Seth and he is really doing it justice to help get the word out to people.
It's been a blessing for me. I feel blessed to have been part of it and to get to know Rob, and because he was a very private person. He was not very sociable. But he and I connected right off the bat, and yeah, I'm blessed to have gotten to know him a little bit.
Now, does anybody have any questions for Audrey, Shauna, Kate? Just fire away. There he is. That's Bob.
Put your hands up.
Hands up.
Well, Bob, I have a question. When you did the interview, it was at what they call the Hill House.
Yes.
Is that where Rob lived at the time?
Yes, they had moved from the Water Street apartment. They were on that Hill House, yeah. And it was very nice. It was kind of a ranch-style, one-story ranch-style house. And they had several parakeets. So if you listen to the soundtrack carefully, you can hear the parakeets chirping.
Oh, they had parakeets. Okay.
Bob,
Were those Rob's parakeets or were they Laurel's parakeets?
I believe they were both of theirs, yeah.
Okay.
Laurel was there, but they were not married yet.
Okay.
What year was it? 1990?
1991.
Mm-hmm.
We went back, I think it was the next year, 1992, we went back to shoot the artwork more and the family photos.
Mm-hmm.
But it was nice. There was the artwork just hanging on the walls. Seth painting and all the famous artwork just right there. It was amazing. And we had to stop for about half an hour while the neighbor was mowing his lawn. The noise was too loud, so it was like, oh.
It's so real life.
The challenges of, filmmaking. But it was wonderful, wonderful. He sat in Jane's rocker when we did the interview, and wonderful stuff.
Okay. What? Okay.
Sorry about that. Have some foot traffic today.
She was incognito.
Yeah.
Kate, any questions for Bob or?
I went to the YouTube channel and there are no videos there. Under the discussion, it simply says to see them on the website.
Really?
Yes. So we'll look at that. And I told everybody on Facebook that we will send the correct link to them when this is over.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Bob,
we'll check it all out.
Down for some reason, but they were there a year ago when
Yeah, the channel
Ready to
doesn't have any content.
wow, maybe it was copyright infringement. Oh wait, you're the copyright holder.
I'm the guy. Yeah. So. And they were there for a while because
We'll check that out.
Better get on to that. Oh my gosh. You see that you don't promote yourself as well as we would like you to promote yourself, let alone you're such a humble behind.
Yes.
I have my limitations. Yeah.
And the people on Facebook are very excited about finding them. So we'll make sure they get the information.
Okay. Yes. We'll let you know.
Are there any comments or questions from Facebook friends?
No, just Miriam. She loves parakeets.
Great. Rob, is there some Rob? I call you Rob. You're Bob. I'm sorry.
That's close enough.
I just had a thought. I'm trying to find it again. What are some of the things like that you're most interested in right now that you're working on, some of your projects and things you're doing?
Oh, let's see. For about the last year and a half, I've been working with a company in England called Zohar Entertainment Group. They have
I watch them on TV. They have like a lot of YouTube channels of a lot of UFO stories and stuff like that.
yes. So I have been
that.
editing a lot of videos for them since a year ago, March. And oh gosh, it's got to be almost 100 videos by now. So if you look at the end credits, you know, some of the good ones, those are mine.
That's weird. That's my maiden name. It always ties in somehow for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Zohar.
Over
It's Z-O-H-A though, but they.
That's close enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
over 100 videos, Bob?
Yeah.
UFO theme?
All right. I do one about every 3 or 4 days.
UFOs?
They're kind of like Ancient Aliens, where they cover UFOs, ancient architecture and civilizations, things of that nature. But it kind of zeroes in on that kind of stuff. Time travelers, stargates, things that you might see on Ancient Aliens.
And he has managed to be able to, you know, he writes and edits these videos, and he brings in the music and the pictures, and he gets to talk with some of the people who are doing some amazing research out there and people who've experienced some amazing things. And it's like his idea of like trying to get this information out there, that the universe is a lot more than it's big.
Yeah.
In the official line, the official line of
have.
consciousness, right?
Yeah, I have been involved a lot in the last maybe 15 years with kind of UFO themed videos. I've got a friend who is a co-producer of a number of UFO themed projects. She's there's an organization called MUFON, M-U-F-O-N, Mutual UFO Network, and she's a local member of that, and she hosts monthly meetings that are free. And since 2010, I've been recording those lectures. So there's like, and then Philadelphia sponsors an annual 2 or 3 day conference with lectures, and I've recorded those with some of the top names in the UFO field. And I've gotten to know and work with some of those people, and fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you ever attend like UFO conferences? I know they have, I think it's Alien Con here in California. We usually have it in San Diego and Los Angeles. But
yes, my friend Jennifer attends a lot of those. I haven't been able to travel to do many, but those that are local, I've done. We did one in Phoenix last fall. It was like just after Labor Day.
But and talking to Bob, you know, it's like basically every name in UFO research, he has met them or done some work for them.
Linda Moulton Howe, who
Linda Moulton Howe? How about George Sokolis? You met him?
I had lunch with him. He was at a conference up in New Jersey one time, and he was talking. This is about a year after the show was Ancient Aliens was on, and then he gave a talk, and then my friend invited him and a few other people to lunch, and I sat next to him, so I got to meet him.
Oh, wow.
Admire
his brain.
Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan, I know, and I've worked with him.
Nick Pope, did you ever meet him?
I've met Nick Pope. I haven't spent a lot of time with him, but I've recorded a couple of his lectures. Stanton Friedman, I've worked with.
Whitley Strieber.
I haven't met Whitley. He's one of the people I'd love to meet. Yeah. And I know people who know him.
6 degrees.
Yes, I'm 2 degrees from a whole lot of people. One degree from a bunch. Interesting. Travis Walton, the whole Travis Walton.
Oh, yeah, that was.
Yeah.
You know him, you've met him and talked with him. And
I
you
know him, and we went to
took you to the site where it happened.
2013. We made a video. Well, actually, it generated 2 videos. The first one, they were on the 40th anniversary of his case, which was in 1975.
That's Travis Walton. Real quick, he was in Arizona, northern Arizona. He was abducted, lifted into a spacecraft, and it was witnessed, and he was gone for days. And
Yeah, well, they actually didn't see him get lifted. They were a part of a logging crew, and on their way home in the woods, they saw a bright light. They came up to it. It was a UFO. Travis jumped out to go get a closer look and was practically underneath it. And it was starting to make sounds and movements like it was going to leave. And at that point, he decided to run back to the truck, and he was hiding behind a pile of branches and brush. So as he stood up, he was zapped by a beam of energy, which they said tossed him about 15 to 20 feet through the air. He landed like a rag doll, at which point the other 6 guys in the truck took off like rabbits in the truck.
They all passed lie detector tests.
They did.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
did. They passed lie detector tests, and when they went back to look for Travis 10 minutes later, he was gone. The UFO was gone. He was gone for 5 days and then was returned at midnight on the day that they were given the lie detector tests. This happened on a Wednesday, and it was the following Monday where they all were given and passed lie detector tests. And it was about 11 o'clock that night. The UFO dropped them off on a road near Heber, which was the closest town before they made it the turnoff to go into the Sitgreaves Forest, which was another 20-minute drive through the woods, basically, to get to the logging site. But he recognized the town, went in, and the phone booth that he called his wife's brother on, because they were the closest to that town at the time. It's still there. Phone booth's still there. It doesn't operate, but they haven't taken it away, which we kind of think is a little weird.
And then, so you met him, and you did you filmed some video of him. What happened?
Yeah, we spent several days going to all of the major sites where they started that morning, and they live in the town of Snowflake, which is about an hour from the site. So we started there, and then we went to the little town of Heber, and then we went to the actual site where everything happened. And we made several trips there with 2 of the different loggers that are still around and alive. And so he was at the site with them for the first time in 38 years at that point.
Wow.
I think I saw that, actually.
Yeah, that one's called Tracking Skyfire,
I might have.
where we basically went through all the sites, and then we created a video. Do I have that here? Called Travis. Yeah, here it is. That has been in a whole bunch of festivals. It's won a bunch of awards. I didn't edit that, but a lot of my footage was in that, and my partner Jennifer Stein really handled the editing of that project. And that tells the whole basic story. Whereas the first video was really, call it a site tour. Here's where this happened. Here's where that happened. And you kind of got bits of the story from as the various people were reminiscing about what happened. So
That's some incredible. Just the thought, like having the reunion in the sites, like the first time to talk about what happened, what it meant to them. And so,
yeah.
how many? So you know Travis Walton, you've worked on these. How many? With all you filmed, how many Travis projects came of this? You know, like how many? So
just two. The Tracking Skyfire, and then this one just called Travis.
Okay, Tracking Skyfire.
And I've recorded him giving lectures probably 4 times.
Yeah.
I've met him a bunch of times, and he's the real deal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who
Rings
else?
true to me.
Who else do you know in the UFO field? Well, Well, let me. Seth talked about multidimensional beings, UFOs, alien life, so-called alien in quotation mark.
Mhm.
How would you equate, this is like making the biggest connection here, Seth's words about this topic, that kind of informed you about this whole field, and here you are in this field. So what's the Seth connection? How did that inform your journey into this kind of fun stuff?
Well, of course, as I get involved with the UFO stuff, I think about, and he didn't say a lot about it. Seth addressed UFOs or aliens only on a few occasions. There's not a lot there. But what he did say was that they are mostly interdimensional, that they are real, and which accounts for so many of the weird things that UFOs do, like they morph and change shape. They can blink in and out. You know, they're there 1 second and gone the next. Aliens who come floating through solid objects, walls, doors, windows, and things that defy physics. So he said that what we're experiencing is really a kind of a blend of our physics and their physics, which are very off.
Right.
So I
Mhm.
had that in mind when I'm, you know, especially those researchers who address the issue of UFOs and aliens as being interdimensional craft and entities. And I think they're closer to getting the reality of what that's all about. And yet on the physical plane, we're experiencing some very strange and very odd things that occur with people being abducted and encounters with UFOs that are just amazing, you know, and they defy logic and physics, but they're happening. And it's just
It's
one of the number of
indication
things I
that we
find
need to-
interesting. Sorry.
No, I'm just going to say that it's an indication that we need to revise our concepts regarding physics. We need to expand our concepts, you know.
Yes, yes. And when you look at all the evidence for them being here, not just recently, but for probably thousands of years.
Probably millions of years.
Possibly millions.
I would say that, yeah.
Yeah. I did a video for Zohar where they found a wheel in a coal mine in the Ukraine that they've dated to like 300 million years ago. And it looks exactly like a wooden wagon wheel, and it's embedded in the coal. Like nobody could put it there.
Right. I think that supports some of what Seth says about civilizations that have come and gone for,
Yes.
you know, for time immemorial, that we have no idea physically, probably because of modern archaeology. You know, we can only look so far into the earth. And I think that's just scratching the surface. You know, I think
Right.
that, and I believe that Seth says there have been civilizations of man on the earth that have exceeded what we consider to be technology. They're more technologically advanced than even we are. But then they probably had psychic abilities, and they had developed other aspects of their psyche beyond what we have.
Mm-hmm.
But that was millions and millions of years ago. And
Yes.
yeah, so the ancient alien theory, I think, does not run counter to anything that Seth says about aliens. So.
Yeah, and I know Rob said he had asked more questions about it because they were Star Trek fans, and they were very interested in the topic of UFOs. But that was one of the things he mentioned. He said, yeah, there's so many things we could have talked about. He says, like UFOs, we didn't ask too much about that. They did uncover, Mary Dillman found a piece where they asked about Bigfoot and Sasquatch if they were real, and he more or less said they were.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, as you were saying, the ancient stuff, like chapter 15, Seth Speaks, he's talking about other races of beings that came to this dimension, and they destroyed their homeland, and they were given another chance and brought to this plane of existence. and how they created a beautiful civilization. And then there was a fringe group from that called the Lumanians, who lived mostly underground. And it's like, wait, Seth's getting really wacky here. But so much of like ancient astronaut, ancient alien theories are saying there's all these tunnels underground. Who lived there? How did they build these things? And then Seth's saying, Lumanians.
Yeah.
And and in another place, like in personal sessions, forget what session, but it was, Seth says, you were seeded, your species was seeded. There's at least 4 other races of what you would think of as non-Earth beings who are part of your DNA. And there's a lot of variety of ancestry and what kind of Earth beings or other world beings there were, but it's a love fest. We're all the love children of the.
I agree. I like that too.
You know, and I know that sometimes they make it sound, you know, more sinister breeding project and all that, but I remember seeing one meme, and it was a beautiful quote, that you are the product of an unbroken chain of love. Like really, you are the product of an unbroken chain of love. Like here we all were little babies and people fed us. We were annoying, we smelled bad, we made noise, but still they fed us. And here we are today. So that took love. And then an unbroken chain of love. Our ancestors were all fed, and they weren't thrown to the tigers, at least until they bred, you know. But that's kind of a thing I like to think, like our human heritage is about, you know, community coming together to help each other live and grow, and for the children to get old enough to make other children. But so I'm not necessarily all sinister about what some of that interbreeding could be. Yes, Seth says there were experiments, and yes, Seth says sometimes those experiments went in wonky ways, as experiments often do. But that I do prefer to see that this human experience on Earth and this otherworldly experience on Earth as coming out of good faith and love and trying to create positive society experiences, even though there's like, it's bumpy. And yes, there may have been ancient wars, because Seth said that some of the technologies that were used to build things were also often used in war.
Sound, I think. Weren't some civilizations built on sound?
Yes.
Like
they utilize sound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Utilizing sound technologies to move, says even the ancient pyramids, it was sound technology that moved those huge boulders, sound technology that drilled those tunnels. So they had these technologies that we don't have privy to right now, but nonetheless, that is part of the Earth heritage, was these incredibly advanced cultures. And it's like, I want to know more about our Earth heritage and how far back it goes and who were our ancestors. And I think there's some beautiful stories back there, and it's probably some sobering ones too. But I think, you know, we're asking the questions because we're ready to learn, where we want to know more about who we are and what's going on. And
and if we're asking the questions, then we need the answers. You know, I think Seth says somewhere that the answers, when you ask the question, there's a part of you that already knows the answer, or the answer is somehow implied in the question, something like that.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, because we're inquiring now. We're at a state in our consciousness where we're full of questions, and then we have evidence showing up, the physical things showing up that don't make sense. So, you know, we really want to know what's going on out here. You know, we want to know who we really are. I think one of the most fascinating things I've ever heard about our heritage, and this is something that I learned from Linda Moulton Howe. And she talks about an interview that she did with, I think, an ex-Navy SEAL. And she calls them Spartan 1 and Spartan 2. But they talk about a pyramid that's under the ice. Is it the Arctic or Antarctica?
Antarctica.
Oh, you know the story, Bob. Okay.
Oh, that
I've
is
edited
so
3
amazing.
different videos on that.
Okay.
Oh,
So
wait,
that's the kind of
Shawnee, you're
thing.
asking the right guy. Bob just said he edited 3 videos on
And I was on a UFO themed cruise with Linda last year where she talked about that. And,
That's so amazing to me.
Yeah.
You know, aside from the fact that I believe that it's there, but the government doesn't want to share it with us because I guess as far as the government is concerned, we're not capable of assimilating that kind of knowledge. You know, we don't have it within us to keep from losing our minds if we discover that our heritage is greater than what we think it was, you know.
Yeah, and why are there's other reasons why these things are hidden from us, and I want to find out those reasons too. But what's the story behind what's in the Arctic? Tell that, Audrey, Shauna, Bob. What's going on?
Bob would know maybe more than I would.
there's stuff about the Arctic that goes back even to the middle of the last century.
Admiral Byrd.
Admiral Byrd, there was a story about him flying around the Arctic and suddenly he's in a green valley. And then all of a sudden the two UFOs appear. He was in a prop plane at the time. And these two UFOs kind of almost take control of his plane, force it to land. And these blonde Nordics come out of the UFOs, take him to an underground facility, which he said was immense and had modern looking structures. And they sat and met with an elderly, human looking, wise alien, whatever you want to call him. And he more or less told him that Admiral Byrd should send the message that, and this was right after World War II, that we need to get control of humans wanting to fight wars and kill each other. And we were developing technologies that could be harmful to the entire planet. Extinction. And that he had to go back and present the message that, you know, we've got to change our ways and so forth. So I don't know if in the follow-up whether he actually followed through with that to that extent. But there, you know, that's a story that's.
I think he tried to, but he was institutionalized after he started talking. From what I understand.
Probably. And then at one point, the Navy mounted a massive. It was a giant flotilla of warships and cargo ships and helicopters that went to the Antarctic.
Project High Jump or something like that?
Yes, exactly. And they went down. It was supposedly for research, blah, blah, blah. But why are you sending warships, destroyers
right.
for research?
Right.
And there's stories about the Nazis and during World War II, they had captured UFO technology. And then when the war was going bad for them, they shipped a bunch of that to the Antarctic. So there's theories that some of these are Nazi bases, UFO bases in the Antarctic. And what we're going to do, and that there was some giant battle between the US forces and the Nazi UFOs. And it sounds like something out of science fiction, but this story.
Like you were saying too, the American-based military expedition down there, and it was cut short. They left quickly, like something was going on down there, that it was alluded to that this was like this was somebody else's homestead. UFO. Right. The aliens and UFO type beings were who were living in that area called the Arctic Circle, and that the mission was ended really quickly and they left. Right. It was like Yankee go home.
And to this day in the Antarctic, there is a no-fly zone. Only military craft are allowed to fly, and even then there's restrictions. So there's
like, why, if it's just a big snow pile?
Right. Why? Why would there be a military restriction over, you know, a snow pile? It doesn't make any sense.
Right. So Linda's recent stories about the two ex-Marines who are, you know, incognito talking about these underground bases.
That's amazing.
Alien bases down in the Antarctic. So
what are they saying? So this is the recent findings from Linda about how I didn't hear this. So there's a couple of military guys who said there's underground bases there.
Correct.
Antarctic.
Correct.
What else?
Well, one guy, I'm not sure if it was Spartan 1, she had two informants. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it was the first one or the second one, but he said that he went inside of a pyramid, a huge, huge pyramid. He said that it was so vast that you literally could not see the end of it. And
In the
instead of a ceiling, this is in the
Antarctica.
In Antarctica. And
I'm sorry.
it was a huge, huge, just incredibly vast space, but it was an enclosure, but it was huge. And it had a ceiling, and the ceiling was maybe 10, 20 feet above, and it was like a slab, and it just hung, just suspended over the room. And there was no way that they can see how it hung there. And that the walls glowed with the green light, and there were hieroglyphics all over. He said it was a language, but he couldn't decipher what the language was. But the best that he can describe it, the best way he could describe it is to say that it looked like some type of hieroglyphic. And that just, you know, I believe that that's true. And I'm just so ready for the United States to start to admit, you know, that things like this are real.
The case in Rendlesham Forest, I'm sure you, I don't know if you've all heard about it, but also on that craft, there were what looked like hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics,
Yes.
Hieroglyphics on the I-beam on the Roswell crash. The debris that
Yes,
they
that's
recovered
right.
from the rock. Yeah, so there's a theme there. There's information there. There's stuff there that we need to know about.
And it's
And I
complicated
wonder-
because we're dealing with not just one or two races. There are dozens of different types, from the human-looking blondes to the grays, the short grays, the tall grays,
Reptilians.
reptilians, the insectoids, which I find most bizarre. That
Oh, no.
they look like a praying mantis. How could something like that be intelligent and sentient and because we
Right. We have
They
to
evolve.
open our minds. We have to start to look beyond the beliefs that we have, you know.
right.
I wonder if Seth didn't intentionally kind of omit that, you know, stuff from his work. Maybe he didn't want to open that can of worms because.
Yeah, he certainly didn't offer it up unless they asked about it, which they only did a couple of times.
And I think he did say, hey, if you guys want the Christ book, I've got it ready for you.
Right.
And other things he offered. And I guess they were just so busy typing what he was giving to kind of catch up with stuff. But as far as alien stuff goes too, well, one thing too, he says everything is consciousness. There are kinds of consciousness in other dimensions you couldn't believe. So I find no problem with seeing the consciousness in everything in this world, including insects. I mean, you look at an ant pile, it's like, wow, they got something going on here.
They're communicating, they're working as a team.
They got a system, you know, and they don't watch TV, you know, so they're but also too, when you look at like, yes, there is the painting that Rob did of Seth. But as we've talked about before, and we've shown you before, there's that drawing that Bill McDonald did in 1964 of an apparition that he saw in their apartment in the doorway of classic cone head.
He looked like a gray.
Looked like a gray, right?
Gray.
That's what Bill McDonald saw. Seth, this was the whole thing. Seth, Jane channeling, Seth trying to help Bill McDonald draw this picture of him from the apparition he was putting there and putting it in his head and giving him instructions. And yes, it was a classic cone head, large cranium, what we would call an alien, but there's skulls that are picked up all over the planet that are these huge cranium skulls. And Seth says, that's me, draw that. So Seth was an alien?
Well, you know, Seth could be from a different, well, we already know that he's a multidimensional entity, but it could be that he's from a future so far advanced that that's what he looks like. And it could be that the aliens that we see are also advanced as well. And that's why they look like that too.
And in the past, like these ancient skulls they dig up of huge, huge skulls. And, you know, this drawing in 1964 is before people were talking about these sort of things. Even now, it's before people are making it common knowledge about some of these things. So he hearkened his physical image to one of those large beings with a large skull and a large cranium. So he was specific. He wanted that known. that we had this in the record and in our mind to see him in that light too. And yes, he's multidimensional, so there's no limit to the wardrobe changes. Where any
Right.
being, you know, and there's all those beings are in the Seth club of the entity Seth. So no limit to how his consciousness could express things there. Bob, are you wanted to jump in on something there about?
No.
Yeah. But that,
Well, Gabriel over on Facebook has a question for Bob.
hey,
He thinks it would be very interesting to ask Bob about his perceptions, his experience in the interview with Rob. What opinions and thoughts did that experience bring to you?
It pretty much just validated, you know, you can read books about a topic, but anybody could write almost anything. And just being with him, talking with him, getting to know him, it pretty much validated everything that I had perceived from reading the books, that he's a sincere, honest, regular guy, very smart, very articulate, and a sense of peacefulness. Like when you watch him talk, he's very slow and deliberate. But there's very little that I had to cut out because, you know, I would ask him a question and he would think about it momentarily and then answer. But he rarely had to stop and think about something. Once he was on topic, you know, he would just articulate it very well. I was, you know, impressed by that. As with the Casey and other books and materials too. Like you can read a book about this stuff or hear lectures, but when you get to actually sit and get to know these people a little bit and spend some time with them, you know, it kind of validates what the claims that are being made in these books and so forth, that, yeah, these are real people. They're not, nobody's made these people up, and what they're talking about is really real. And for the most part, they're not millionaires from it. They're not looking for attention. They you know, have encountered and are experiencing material that they feel is important enough to share with the world. And so it's really a validation of you know, getting to know, and that's what I wanted to capture within the video, is to give people a sense of who Rob was, and that he's a genuine person, and that this whole story is real. These are not made up people, and they're not pseudonyms or anything of that nature.
Thank you.
and what's on video is, it's a beautiful, you captured it, and he opened up and it was there on video. But there was also, you know, you had private time together, that just, you know, having a snack together and talking about this and that. You shared your art. Bob Terrio is an amazing artist. He has some beautiful paintings, but I don't have any to show you right now. But you know, talking on a real level, not just capturing for video, but that's what you're saying, because you were able to just be there and talk to him just person to person. That's what a beautiful experience that was for you.
Yeah, and most of my work, I know a lot of professional crews, they show up with, you know, a dozen people and makeup people, and, you know, and that can be very intimidating for people. So most of my career, even with corporate video work, I work with either myself or just like a couple of people. And I think for most people, it's less intimidating. You know, we just set up a camera, a few lights, and try to sit comfortably and treat it like a conversation, rather than, you know, come in with the crew and, okay, everybody, 3, 2, 1, let's go. And I think in a lot of situations, people get uncomfortable, feel intimidated. And so I like to work very simply with either just myself or with another person, and set the camera far enough back so that it's not right in their face. And so they can just sit and have a conversation and capture that, because he was the same off camera as he was on camera. So I was lucky enough to get him to just sit and relax and have a conversation. So of course in the video I cut out all my questions that I asked him, but you know, that's the real Rob Butts.
That a good answer for our questioner? Kate?
Gabriel said, thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
There's other questions too.
Great.
Kara wants to know if you were part of the Harmonic Conference in 2020
Convergent.
or the Mandela Effect Conference.
No,
Convergence, I
I
think.
wish I had more time and money to attend all kinds of conferences, because I have interests that go in different directions, you know, not just UFOs, but limited time and limited money. But like I said, I've been lucky enough to have an opportunity to meet most of the people that I really have an interest in and respect for. They kind of come close enough to Philadelphia that I get a chance to meet them. And lately I've been doing some remote stuff. We did a UFO themed cruise back last year that went from San Diego down to Mexico. And Linda Moulton Howe, Rich Dolan, and a lot of the top people were there. So that was interesting.
Well, Miriam also asked if you've done anything about Roswell.
No, just have read a lot about it. And one of the researchers who is still heavily involved with trying to research that lives about 40 minutes from my home. Tom, well, I'm gonna brain freeze on his last name, but he's written a number of books. I've recorded lectures with him. I've been to his house and met him. And so he's done a lot of research. He's talked to over 200 secondary, first-hand, secondary, and third-hand witnesses, and is still trying to, as long as he's living and as long as some of the witnesses and their relatives are alive, he's still actively pursuing that.
Okay.
So that's as close as I've come to Roswell, other than another friend, Peter Robbins, who has organized the annual Roswell event every July. He's been the organizer of that for 4 or 5 years. So I've come close to Roswell. I'd love to go there to visit. Linda Moulton Howe, of course, has been involved with stories about that, and other people also. And Stanton Friedman, who I've worked with, was the first one to really kind of make it more public back when he found Jesse Marcel Sr., who was the communications director at Roswell back, and was part of and was the one who went out to the ranch and saw the materials. And Stanton Friedman was at a lecture in Atlanta. This was back in the early 90 or in the 80s. And several people said, you know, the guy you need to talk to is this Jesse Marcel. He's a retired Air Force guy, but he's seen aliens and a UFO crash. And that's all they would tell him. So he tracked him down, found him, and interviewed him. And that's what broke the whole Roswell story, because otherwise it had been buried since 1947.
Kara just commented a title, Pentagon releases 3 leaked videos. She said it was released 2 months ago on YouTube.
Are you referring to the Air Force camera footage that was released? It was actually released in December of 2017, but it's gotten occasional appearances in the media.
I think there's a show on the History Channel now all about that. Ex-Pentagon guy. Yeah, that's
right.
The
Louis
USS Nimitz incident?
I don't know if it was the Nimitz, but they were actually two different videos. One was shot near Pasadena, California, and the other one was shot on the East Coast, off of Virginia. And they refer to one as the Tic Tac.
Right.
And Luis Elizondo, who I've met.
him, yeah.
That's him. Mhm.
Yeah, there's a 7-part series on the History Channel that he's produced. And if you actually watch the first episode of that, they've got some footage when he gave his first public speaking and lecturing about it, which was at a National MUFON conference, which was in New Jersey 3 years ago. And as they show shots of the room, of the people in attendance, if you look in the middle of the room at a cameraman standing there with a light turquoise shirt, that's me.
Oh, wow.
I'm in the show.
I'm gonna watch it again just to see you.
I'm famous. I'm in the show. I'm online for 3 seconds, but I knew because they had a crew show up when he spoke. They had a professional crew show up and they were shooting him. And so when I saw the show, when I saw that footage, I said I knew that's from the MUFON conference. And so when they shot the room, I go, "Oh, there's me." One of my sons with me, and I go, "See that guy?" I pause it. I go, "There I am. I'm right there." I'm famous now. So yeah, and we were at a conference last year in Phoenix, and Kevin, I forgot his last name. He was the radar chief on the Princeton, SS Princeton, which was part of the kind of war games they were doing out on the West Coast at the time, that they captured some of that footage. But his story was interesting because he said for more than a week, every day, the radar would pick up like a dozen of these little targets, and they were at like 20,000 feet. And he said they were going so slow. At first they thought they were birds or something. They were like 100 miles an hour. And these things have been known to go 3, 4, 5,000 miles an hour. And he said they're just going from north to south, 100 miles an hour. And so they sent some jets up to check it out. And they said as soon as the jets got within visual range, he said within like 3 seconds, they dropped down to right above just ocean level. And of course, the jet couldn't catch up with them. So the jet then dove down to go after him again. And as soon as it got near down by ocean level, within 3 or 4 seconds, back up to 20,000 feet and didn't change course, just kept going slow. And he said that was, that went on for a week, and it ended up canceling the scheduled war games because of it. Even though they were not threatening, but didn't show any signs of being a danger, but they'd show up every day, same thing, group of them. And he said over the period of that week, like they had like 100, spotted like 100 of these, and just flying in a little slow formation, 100 miles an hour. So yeah, that was an interesting lecture because you know, when you talk to the people, go, well, if the military guys, if everybody's seen these, how come they don't get out and talk? Well, they do. You got to go to the UFO conferences or watch Ancient Aliens or these specials, and they're talking.
Yeah.
You know, Linda Moulton Howe getting them to talk.
And there's so
Right.
many documentaries out there made by people like you and other people. It's
Right.
like, if you want to be a documentary filmmaker, this is the topic of the day that everyone is interested in, and that people are finding all this information. And also, I think, in answer to that woman's question, I think I heard there was within the last 2 months information released by the government of videos or something about UFOs or something.
Yeah,
What-
if you go to YouTube and you just Google Pentagon releases, almost every news station has picked it up. So there was
Oh yeah,
15 of them on there.
right. Yeah, no,
Within the last-
that made worldwide news because it was the first time that the Pentagon acknowledged that
Yes.
they had kind of footage that wasn't space gas or swamp gas or a meteor.
Balloons,
Stupid,
weather balloons.
Weather balloons.
right? And it was amazing around the time of the 50th anniversary of Roswell, the FBI was so concerned about the fact that this was going to get so much media attention. They put out a thick book that was about like the size of a phone book, about 2 inches thick, like the real story about Roswell. And it was like all about the weather balloon and that the people that they saw that they thought were recovered aliens were crash test dummies, that they were part of these special experiments. But as people pointed out, those tests didn't happen in 47, they happened 3 years after that. So here, somebody spent a lot of time and money to write and produce with photos and all of this stuff to try to, you know, calm the story down. And it's extraordinary to the length and extent they went just to produce this book.
Yeah, and I was telling Bob, we were talking earlier today, and that I have a friend, and he knows him too. His name is Robert Salas, who was a captain in like late 1960s in the military, and he was stationed in I think it was Montana at a nuclear base, missile base that had a dozen missiles pointed at Russia. It was the Cold War, and that's the kind of thing we did with our money here, was we pointed missiles at Russia. And he was one of the people in charge of this base. He was a captain, and there were a lot of men guarding this and just sitting out in the middle of nowhere with missiles and making sure everything. One day, a UFO shows up and turns off all their missiles. Yeah. Oh, well, that's a lot of excitement, and it affected some of the guys. Well, let me tell you what Mr. Salas, Captain Salas said. Like 10 years ago, he told me what happened. And I was a friend of his wife. And back then he was just starting to maybe want to talk about this and get himself out there in the world. So I was one of the first people he told the story to. Now you can look up Robert Salas, and you know, he's been at the conferences, he's been at special talking things, engagements. But I remember when he told me what happened, the story itself is kind of chilling. You know, UFO lands and lands, but hovers over and turns off these nuclear weapons. But he said he was downstairs when it happened. He was at the panel monitoring. He could have been the one to set off World War, whatchamacallit, you know. And all of a sudden, you know, he gets these calls from up topside saying, we're seeing this is going on. And what happened was, you know, it was like they called and then he got a telepathic message from them that said, we're shutting you down now. And it felt so calming and peaceful, he didn't panic. But he looked over to the monitor and he saw all these missiles that were red light, you know, or green light, or I think green, go from on to off, right in a row. Offline, 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 offline. And he said he was perfectly calm. He felt like it was a sense of an adult taking matches from a child, and that it was okay. And it was like he was just observing this happen, that there were just, he saw it, all these nuclear missiles offline, offline, offline. Now that experience was okay. Where it got bad was, okay, and then as soon as everything's offline, the UFO leaves. And that's it. But then shortly thereafter, I don't know how long, they were invaded by the really scary thing. The military, who were coming after everyone who witnessed this. And they interrogated everyone who saw this. And I'm trying to paraphrase from what Mr. Salas, Captain Salas, Bob Salas said, told me 10 years ago, and he has repeated this story, but the really scary thing was how the military treated everyone who witnessed this. All the men were interrogated and they were ordered to forget what they saw. They were ordered to sign documents that said they will not say what they saw. They were bullied. They had all these scary things going on with the military saying, this is top secret, you do not talk about this. And Bob Salas was smart enough to say, you know, he was ordered to forget he saw what happened, and he was smart enough to say, yes, sir, I forgot what happened. And so talking with him, he says, there must be, in effect, some huge cabal, he called it, that is keeping this a secret. he said it wasn't the UFO that scared him. It was his own, the military or whatever it was that showed up.
The majestic folks.
Right. Yeah, Majestic 12, Magic. Yeah.
They
Well,
moved people to other bases so they couldn't talk to each other. Some people disappeared, but so something thinks it's really important to like keep this a secret. If people have experiences, wipe it out. And he says that's the scary part. Something huge has to be in place, because they didn't. Obviously he realized this is not the first time this has happened, or there wouldn't be this heavy-duty machinery in place to respond immediately when it does. That was the scary thing. He's like, this is not the first time something like this has happened. What's going on? But he did his best to put it out of his mind for the rest of his career, and until he heard an interview on the radio of something like this, and he goes, oh my God, that happened to me. And then started his coming out process as a UFO experiencer.
Mm-hmm. Well, most researchers, like Richard Dolan, pretty much have said that from the 60s through the 1980s, virtually every missile site, nuclear missile site, not just in the US, but in Russia, England, had visitations from UFOs. And if they didn't just shut down the missiles, they changed the launch codes on them, which they said, you can't do that electronically. You have to open up the sealed hatches, get into the missile, take off however they access inside the missile, and it has to be changed physically, manually. And these UFOs would hover over it, and within a minute, they'd be gone and the launch codes would be changed. So,
sending a strong message. Sending a strong message.
yes, yes. And the atomic age changed the whole UFO field. I mean, it was not long after that, because it was in 1945 that we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it was less than 2 years later that Roswell, and actually the first sighting by Kenneth Arnold out in Washington, that was a couple of weeks before the Roswell crashes.
But what's the message then? UFOs don't want us blowing ourselves to smithereens, or?
Yes. Yes.
You know, I think that UFOs are okay with us blowing ourselves to smithereens, but I don't think they want to see the Earth destroyed.
That's part of it, right? And some people, if they believe that the aliens were here millions of years ago and helped the evolutionary process and helped create humans as we know them. So we're part of their great children, or
right.
part of their experiment. They don't want to see that fail. They really don't want to see us destroy ourselves.
Right.
And
right.
some also believe that we are psychically connected in so many ways to some of these other civilizations and really connected, so that if we fail as a species, that it has a real effect on them as well.
Well, and we are part of each other in so many ways. I mean, Seth says, you know, we are all part of some greater oversoul, whatever, and the wise parts of our oversoul are looking out for us. There is something we're learning, we're growing, we're part of something bigger. We are being nurtured along. I guess this is my fantasy, that we are being nurtured along and we're cared about. And yeah, there's something that is monitoring our spiritual growth or our collective development as a species doing the Earth thing. So that's actually should be a good feeling that, wait,
yeah,
is taking the magic from the kid, or go ahead. Right.
The Seth material itself is part of that helping along, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of it's Seth's way of saying, okay, you've reached a certain point in your psychological and psychic development where I'm going to take the chance that you can actually understand what I'm telling you. So I'll shoot straight from the hip and I'll put it in words that you can understand. I'll make my concepts digestible. But basically, we have to, we're at a place where we're either going to develop and move forward or we're not.
And he says you're at a time in your development where you can, I'm paraphrasing, handle this information. It's time to set aside childish stories and develop, evolve, move forward. And here's the material. And people are talking about these kinds of things. So I think it's working. And I don't think it was just Seth alone who was dropping some wisdom on us. I think it's been coming to this dimension, this collective reality, from many sources. Many people, many otherworldly beings have been trying to feed us good info to help nurture us along, without blowing whatever this project is. Like, granted, all of a sudden every TV on earth can say, hello, we are from another planet and we are here to tell you, or hi, I'm Seth 23456, and here's the facts.
We're the babies of the universe, so they're helping us along.
And just that, well, at the same time, we're multidimensional. You know, there's parts of me that know a heck of a lot more than what I seem to know here, and all of us too. We have higher aspects to ourselves, all of us. And trying to figure out, what is this Earth gig? And we can have different answers different days. We're always speculating, but I have to keep coming back to, it's benevolent. That whatever is in charge here is benevolent, or otherwise, like, you know, anyway, it's benevolent, it's positive, it's loving, it's trying to help us along. I think within this equations, there could be nefarious elements that are messing with us. I don't know, to thicken the plot or make the drama more interesting to keep our attention. But I do hearken to what I think is like the overwhelming positive influence of all that is, to nurture and help develop all beings for their greater good. So maybe I'm living in a fantasy land, but boy, it's a nice one and I'm going to keep it. But I do think there's a huge positive thing going on, because that's what I feel like I keep relating to. When I go into my inner world, I feel like there's a loving something that's looking out for us. And there is some kind of strange mischief in this dimension, but I guess there's room for everything to be experienced and everyone to get the life experience they need, whether it's creating mischief and mayhem, or whether it's trying to make peace and sense of it all. So walk amongst yourselves. I
agree. I agree. And also, you know, we're going to be the survivors of this pandemic. You know, I plan on being a survivor of the pandemic. And as survivors, you know, we have a unique opportunity to, you know, going forward, as we kind of rebuild things, to slip Seth in there somehow, slip some of the ideas, you know. I don't know if you guys have ever read the, I think it's this one, Psychic Politics.
Jane, yeah.
Yeah, and she talks about the codicils, and the codicils are ideas about how to build a better world, how to build a better society, certain concepts, you know, that need to be part of that. And that's the kind of thing I think we need to be focused on. You know, what's tomorrow going to look like from a Sethian point of view? And he gives us the tools, you know. We just have to put it out there.
Yeah.
Live.
Use whatever talents we can. If you're a writer, write books. If you're an artist, do paintings. If you're a filmmaker, make films, and just.
If you're a mom, let your kids know that they're just living one life. Let them know that you chose them and they chose you.
Yeah.
And all of us too. It's like the things that we're studying and questioning and wondering about. Start talking with people in your life about it if you haven't already. I mean, if this is something you're interested in, which obviously it is, maybe the other people in your life may also be interested in it, but you never gave them a chance. You know, both of you have been afraid, oh, I don't want to talk about this. What will they think? I think this needs to be the era of conversations that are meaningful. That we talk about this. You know, I think the COVID thing, lots of people are addressing life and death issues in new ways, and that's good. You know, talk about stuff that matters and meaningful and the meaning of life. So, but you know, getting it close to the bone. What do we speculate is going on here? Look at the beautiful conversation that the five of us shared, and the people watching live on Facebook, and also too this whole conversation. People are going to review it later. We get like 200 views, 300 views, within a few weeks after Kate posts it. So, and who knows if, 100 years ago, people were saying, did you see the Bob Terrio, Shauna, Audrey, Kate, and O'Shara thing on the Seth thing? And it goes viral and billions of people are watching from other galactic realms, because the things we're touching upon really do matter. The things we're asking,
Yeah.
the experiences.
Just the fact that we're having the conversation, just the fact that we're talking about it. When Jane had her ESP classes, I'm sure that none of those guys in the beginning ever thought that they would be that Seth would have exploded as he did. They just thought they were going to a cool teacher's house, a cool lady's house, and maybe puff a little weed, maybe drink some wine and listen to her channel. They probably had no idea at the time, what it would be. It's like we don't have any idea.
You're right.
They just talking about it.
They had no idea that 50 years later, people like us would be going, what happened in that apartment? Who said what? Who was drawing a picture of what? You just don't know what the people in the future are going to say. Notice the significance of something because it's significant. Yeah, and so none of us know that how others are going to respond to all of us and all of our contributions and all of our questings and questionings and what we said or what we did or how we affect each other's lives and all these stray moments we live. So it's like, keeps going back to Seth, notice my mind, notice my actions, notice what I'm doing, making it meaningful. And that's just talking about the physical stuff. We don't know the effect we're having in other dimensions at any moment.
Right.
Our influence is so huge. Let's be nice. At least that.
Right.
Always nice.
But yeah, and I don't think Seth's effect and what happened at the Seth House in apartment number 5, 50 years ago, the effect it has had on the life on Earth, the effect it has had, and the effect it will continue to have in human history, there's no limit to the effect that Seth's words are going to have, not just now, but in the future. And as more people, not even yet born yet, find Seth in 100 years, I think people in 50 years are going to understand Seth a lot more than the people who have been alive during the time of Seth up until now. I think in 50 years, 100 years, they'll really get it. They'll really be living everything. That this is the manual of reality, and they'll probably repackage it in certain ways or what have you, because there's just so much. So in one little apartment in one town,
Didn't Seth say churches will fall? So I think people will go to spirituality in the future. Well, they're going there now, I think.
Yeah, and Seth did say it again in Seth Speaks. He mentioned the year 2075 a couple of times, saying that the significant changes will have taken place by then.
Yeah.
That so many changes, including, he said, the religion will be in fall down state, trouble, whatever it was. And
He says churches will be in shambles, so there'll be. I read that just the other day, so I know what you're talking about. I can't tell you exactly what he said, but he did say that the churches would be in such a bad state, all of them. People would truly be searching for answers outside of that framework.
But people are going to be done with those religions, and they're going to be having direct contact with their entity. Again, we're just trying to remember what he was saying in Seth Speaks there, but it's like, this is in 50 years. Could be in our lifetime. I plan to live to be 120. I want to see this,
Well, it's possible when you think about it, because if you look back 50 years ago, how enlightened was the public 50 years ago?
How far we've come.
Right, exactly. How far since then? It's possible.
Yeah. Oh my, there's no stopping it. Seth says this is here. I mean, the trajectory of human growth, he was projecting 100 years. We're at the 50-year part, kind of, So it's like, he's saying I kind of paraphrasing, we're going to be amazing. We're going to know what's going on. He says it will seem as though the species had changed into another. That's a little weird and interesting, but that, yeah, we'll enlighten quite a bit.
Well, go inside also, not look to religion.
Yeah, that'll kind of be a thing of the past, that we'll know what's real.
Yeah.
And we'll be acting that way and living that way and creating a far more just and sane Earth community. So yeah, I want to stick around for that. That's what I want to be part of. Seth says some great stuff there. He said he rarely predicts the future, and he didn't. He was letting us know it's going to be better. You know, we're going to evolve. It's going to be better, or we can make that choice. You know, everybody gets to choose what probability they are. Do you want to be part of the, wow, things are getting better, or do you want to make some drama and do something stupid? But I'm for, I think collectively, Seth gave great advice for how we can live and how we can make things better collectively on the earth. So yeah, let's do it.
We're doing our part.
Yes.
Yes.
We are. I think
Little
so.
bits.
Yeah, we're doing what we can do, you know. Just our being here lends validity to the whole concept, to the whole idea of
and reading the material, sharing the material, conversations that are meaningful, and making a better world. This is how can you not love Seth? This is, Bob, you want to say something? I'm sorry. Bob, okay.
I'm just shifting in the chair.
Okay. So, Kate, do you have anything interesting there on Facebook?
No, I've read most of Facebook's. Well, Miriam's just chimed in, yes, she's agreeing. Kara said, coming back to Seth here, all this mischief, my thoughts being that as we create our reality, the more negative we are as a collective, etc., it creates it. Hence all the negative going on. It's part of that. So my feelings are that, you know, we as Seth readers need to create that positivity and that uplifting beat. That's what it needs to be.
Love it.
I agree.
yeah.
And one thing I've always thought for years that would be great for helping spread the message is if somebody talented in Hollywood would get a hold of the Oversoul 7 books. And now with CG technology the way it is, like you couldn't make that 40 years ago. But now with enough money, you could do anything. And I think that would do so much to bring attention to the Seth material. And we'll make a great film.
I agree.
I think so. I remember hearing a few years ago there was some buzz going around about there being a movie.
There have been options. There are people who have owned the options to it for quite a few years, but they can't get the money together or just can't just make it happen. It just needs the right.
What would a script like that? What would a script look like? What would a screenplay look like? You know, that I couldn't imagine, you know.
Jim Carrey, maybe. Maybe Jim Carrey would be interested. Jim Carrey.
You think so?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, that's
He kind of
that's a movie.
Ashton Kutcher.
Go ahead. Wait, that's a movie I want to see too, and that's been talked about in Hollywood too. There's been a lot of people who've put a lot of energy into that. There's a woman named Sherry Ann Greer who lives in LA and worked on trying to create the screenplay for that. And it will manifest someday because we want that to manifest. But in the meantime, I think we're living in an amazing time for us all to, I have to use the word awaken. What's awakening? Just learning more, realizing more, being more present, more here, to awaken, to be here with more information and data. And I think it's not just about the things we know and the things we learn. It really is who we are, our hearts, how we love, how we care, how we interact more skillfully. So, you know, I want to know everything about what's the history of the earth and what's our potential and what's all this wonderful brain juice. But I think part of what our growth is, and part of what's so important about being human, is that element of how we love and how we feel and how we regard each other and how we want to help, how we want to co-create something positive and make things better. So I think that's really the beauty of the human, you know, whatever a human is. And I know there's all this, all these different species of aliens and whatever, and what is our biological makeup, and we're 4 aliens and 3 rabbits and whatever we are. But it really, we're more than physical. It's not just our physical DNA and who put it all in the cosmic soup. It is the spirit of who we are. It is the soul of who we are. It's the heart of who we are. And we're developing and we're learning and we're evolving. And that's the beauty of who we are and what was set in motion in this collective reality. So just kind of stopping to appreciate the very fact of your own being, and what you really are made of is more than your toenails, fingernails, and hair follicles, and your and you know, a bag of muscles and skin. You know, you're a soul, and that's what Seth says. That's the title of the book. Seth Speaks: The Eternal Validity of the Soul. He's pointing right at you, your soul. That's where the beauty is, the action is, and this, you know, just he keeps pointing back at us. You know, examine.
That's a good place to learn, a good place to begin. You know, is personally understanding that you're way more than what you think you are. You're more than anybody's ever told you that you are. You know, and there's proof of that. Just look inward.
Yeah,
I think that's the most expansive information that I've ever heard. You know, and once we can get into, because we live where we don't even know if we have a soul. We don't even know if we are a soul. You know, science will tell you that you don't have a soul. A soul is almost like an intellectual construct, and it dies when you die. And if we can get people to the point where they see that that's not true, you don't have to be a Christian or a Catholic or anything like that to have a soul. And a soul isn't something that you have and can lose. You are a soul.
that's right.
Soul refers to your being, and that is indestructible. And I know that churches tried it, religions tried it, enforce that, they try to teach that, but the distortions cause it to become lost. You know, you feel like, well, the Lord has my soul, and I can either my soul can either be saved or I can be damned. And it makes you feel like you have no agency when it comes to your very own being. If people can be moved from that perspective, then the world kind of opens up. But as long as you feel like you're a sinful self, then there's not going to be a lot of development from that perspective. You know, you won't even feel worthy of developing. But once we as a people can get to the point where we recognize that we're more than what we think we are. We're not just. I think there was a Star Trek episode where the aliens refer to human beings as bags of mostly water. We're not just bags of mostly water.
That would be a really bad religion. The religion of the bags of mostly water. Yeah.
Bags of mostly water.
Holy water.
Like that, holy water. But yeah, and here we are living at a time where we can talk this way, and we're not being executed or told we can't talk this way, that we can let go of these kind of very painful beliefs that were enforced upon our ancestors and us. And in our own generation, it's like, it can stop. These cruel religions and cruel doctrines in our lifetime, we're part of stopping it and saying, no, it's not true. And here's what's real. I'd rather live real. And we have this guy to thank or the cone-headed guy. Imagine a big cone over here. For being part of what contributed to the human society. These new ideas, these new awakenings about our spiritual soul, real selves. And it's growing, it's only growing. And Seth says in another 50 years, you're not going to recognize this. We're going to be so transformed for the better. So I'm on with that. And and we're all co-creating it. And this is for everybody. No limits. No one's left out of the equation. We all get to evolve and grow into the beautiful souls we really are, and to overcome some of these ideas that are falling by the wayside so fast. And I look forward to getting to know my cosmic brothers and sisters who are, you know, all these different alien creatures, we call them. And I think everything's going to open up in our lifetime, that we're going to know this stuff. But I think the main thing to turn the key for our entry is how loving we choose to be. You know, and I don't mean you have to be in a couple, and I don't mean you have to make babies. Just you know what I mean. It's just the person you are in your heart, and the energy that you emit. Like, that's everyone's job, to create the best self and soul they can be. Just gentle, easygoing, whoever they are, unique, crazy, eccentric, but we're evolving collectively and individually. And reading Seth sure helps me feel like I'm becoming better in my inner world. And I think this is just part of the human journey, collectively and individually. And it's a beautiful thing. And life is not a valley of sorrow. Life is a precious, precious gift. Our souls, who we are. So just keep making it even more beautiful, because you can, and because maybe you can't help it. You're going to keep getting more beautiful whether you want to or not, so just enjoy it. Other thoughts, and you have to be positive and uplifting.
Or else.
Or else. Okay, maybe I should look to Kate too, because it is exactly 6 p.m. on the button here. Yeah, East Coast America time. Kate?
It is. Facebook has been pretty quiet today. I think that the conversation has been absolutely riveting. People are saying, I hope it's being recorded, and yes, it is. So it's being recorded. So maybe 5 minutes after we close, you can start viewing it again on Facebook, but then it will be put on YouTube as soon as it renders and does its computer stuff here. So yes, you can go back and watch this again and again and again. And Miriam, I totally agree with Oshara is what she's saying.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, people have just been really listening, and we've really been enjoying this. Thank you, Bob, for being with us. And I hope you can join us again and again.
I will try. Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Enjoyed meeting you all.
You too.
Anything else? We're still taking donations.
Oh, yeah. Public service announcement. The Seth House
Yes.
is a 501c3 that is trying to buy and fix the Seth House where all of that magic happened. If you can donate, that would be great. And our website is thesethhouse.com. That's thesethhouse.com, where you can find out more stuff about what the heck's going on here in this crazy old building in the crazy old town of Elmira. But thesethhouse.com. Go to the donation page. We have some funny cartoons on there we hope you like. And info@thesethhouse.com if you want to email us. If you want to join the show and the conversation next week, we'd love to have you. info@thesethhouse.com.
For those that have donated for my birthday, we sent out the thank yous on Friday. So
your care package,
getting them.
A package of love from the Seth House if you donate. We sent those out. Go ahead, Kate.
And we have to have your address if you want to get a thank you package.
So a few people we don't have their addresses for, but let us know. Write to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else, sports fans? More announcements?
Stay healthy.
Well, I want to say I miss my friends. I miss Mickey, and I miss Ned, and I miss Sam, and hopefully they'll show up again soon.
Absolutely. Everybody's, come on, talk to us. Yeah, Mickey said she couldn't make it today. And anyway, so I really like what happened here, because we've been talking about we want to do interviews of special people, and we kind of snuck our way into that with Bob without letting him know he was going to be the interview. And I think everybody did everybody did a good job of interviewing Bob because of his remarkable contribution to Seth wisdom with his documentaries.
Now, something that nobody talked about is if you go to the Seth House and you look at the documentary of O'Shara talking about the house, Bob did that. And it is beautiful for the Seth House. And I remember when O'Shara first saw it, she was just so embarrassed. She couldn't put it online. And it took her quite a while to get used to seeing herself, but she did a magnificent job. And I think everybody should check it out. You get to see the house very closely, and she describes everything. So that's on our website. It's also on the YouTube channel.
Yes, that was Bob's doing. He's sneaky.
Yeah.
He came out to the Jane's birthday party last May, and then he says, show me the house and let me video you showing me the house. So I have some, okay. So I just started saying, here's the house, here's what's going on. And he's following me with the camera, and I didn't really think anything of it when he showed up a month later for Rob's birthday party. He said, I got something for you. And he made that 16-minute video for promoting the Seth House. And it was just me showing the house and answering his questions, never dreaming that sneaky Bob was going to make a beautiful documentary. And it scared me.
I love that video. I saw the video and I thought it was
It's
charming.
wonderful.
Thank you, thank you.
It was a great video. I think what was so cute about it was because he was being sneaky. He caught you off guard. You were unguarded. You were unscripted. You were spontaneous. You were passionate, and I loved it. I loved it. I watched it over and over.
Thank you. I was so freaked out when I first saw it, though. Kate's around. I was like, I can't see it. I'm freaking out.
Well, we were playing it on an entire wall at apartment 2, so it was on the big screen.
So you're larger than life.
But Bob did that, and this is Bob's heart is so beautiful and giving, and he just wants to give people information that helps the world. Like his documentaries are informing people, helping people, healing people. He's an amazing guy, and it's wonderful to have Sethies like him who are putting this information and this heart out into the world. So Bob, you're a great guy. You really are.
Well, thank you, and you're amazing people too. You're inspiring me to do great things for the Seth House and for humanity here.
Woohoo, humanity!
Humanity!
Let's go team! So, anything, I got, my aura is,
It's sun in
I
your
know you
eyes.
got the sun.
yeah, my aura is just screwed up. Kate, anybody else, any other announcements, any other thing we should do? This is like from 4 to 6 p.m. We have put on a wonderful couple of hours of info. Is there anything else, Kate, my love?
No, I will be back again next week. Same time, 4 to 6 New York Eastern time.
And
Masks, wash your hands.
Bye
Stay
bye,
well.
everybody. Have a nice night.
Bye, Sean.
Bye.
Bye, bye, Audrey.
Bye.
Bye, Bob. Thank you for being here. Love you all.
Love you too.
Bye bye.